think we're waiting for a few more people to join, but we can go ahead and get started. Want to be mindful of everyone's time. To all of our participants, women from the empowerment group, no pressure, but if you feel comfortable, certainly turn your cameras on so our panelists don't feel like they're just speaking to a sea of computers. But I'm so excited to see all of you again, and thank you for taking this time out of your very busy days to listen to our panelists, and especially to our panelists and moderators who have already put in a lot of legwork to make this an important hour. So just as a reminder, we're going to be addressing questions today that this group submitted, but also some things that the senior brokers who are participating thought would be good things to talk about and wish they were questions someone had answered for them earlier on in their careers. So the chat function is open. If you want someone to elaborate more on something, or you have a question spring to mind, feel free to put it in the chat. And if we have time at the end, we'll try to get to some of those. But not sure we will. We have a lot of good content to get through. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. So first up, we have Evan Baer, who has been with JLL for about 10 years, sits in our DC office and focuses on agency leasing. We have Jody Matthews, who's been with the company for 14 years, sits in our New Jersey office and specializes in tenant representation. And then Louis Tomaselli, who sits in our Irvine office, has been with the company for 9 years and specializes in industrial. So before I hand things over to Molly Glasgow to moderate the panel, I wanted to ask each of the panelists to just say hello, introduce yourself, and then talk briefly about someone who has made an impact on your career. So that could be a mentor, a champion, a peer, a teammate, but talk a little bit about why, what they've done for you, and then how you've built that relationship. And Evan, I thought we could start with you.
Sure, happy to do it. I'm Evan. Thanks for the intro, and I'm honored to be a part of your discussion today, so thanks for including me. And so I guess I'll start with, I had sort of two mentors that I can think of. The first, and they each brought something different to me. The first was a guy named Brian Murphy. I started off my career as a tenant rep at CBRE, and I knew very little. This was in 2003. And the thing with Brian that he taught me was to really, I would just start with, like, do the right thing, right? You can get caught up in a lot of these brokerage sales jobs of, go out there and sell hard and try to make a lot of money, or do this or do that and bang the phone. And for him, it was be a professional, be a consultant, and don't just be a broker. And so that really resonated with me. The second was I then worked at Tishman Speyer for a couple of years, learning more of like the finance side of things. And so I had a really, really difficult boss who, like, no one could get along with, and his expectations were just through the roof on, how to be overly diligent, overly prepared, and always put forth a product that is, a 10 out of 10. And so, he was really difficult on us, but really taught me how to always expect really great results.
That's great, thank you. Jody, do you want to go next?
Sure. I started my brokerage career at what is now CB in New Jersey. No teams, everybody was on their own, and quite frankly, I was floundering. I was running one deal, probably one of two deals I was running at the time, met the landlord rep, and he was impressed by me, but more importantly, his client was impressed by me and suggested that he hire me. He did. I went to C&W, we were partners for 14 years, and I think the greatest thing about the partnership was knowing that I always had one person that had my back. And when we broke up our partnership after many years, that was kind of the hardest thing, kind of being on my own. I'm definitely more of a team player. Learned that about myself, which is why I have teams on everything that I work on now. But I think the key was it can be very frustrating early. And I think especially I was young, I was female, I had no one to look at that, was another female that was successful and everything else. So my mentors were always men. And I think the biggest key to it was knowing that I had someone that had my back. And that's a hard thing to find.
That definitely is. Thanks, Jody. All right, last but not least, Louis.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had to have somebody that asked that on the call, right? The obnoxious, can you hear me? My I would say my mentor was Darla Longo. It sounds like we all have a lot of CBRE relationships. This goes back when it was called Coldwell Banker, which probably most people on this call would not know that name. But so Darla, if you don't know, is really the number one. She's the vice chairman, which is a title you only really get if you're in New York. But she's basically the industrial person across CB for capital markets. Every year she's number one. She's the best of the best. And when I was 21 years old and I graduated from University of Illinois and I came out here, I interviewed with her. Our parents were friends. And I just saw her and what she was doing, as a broker, as a leader at CBRE, but also as a woman. And she was basically taking over this older gentleman's business. He was basically handing it to her. And I thought, this is phenomenal. And I asked her for advice, regardless of gender. And I remember she said, you just have to know everybody and come up with your know, like, and trust team. You need to always have a group of people that you can go to, that you work with and make sure that they kind of fall into that know, like, and trust. And it's going to change, right? There'll be disappointments and people that screw you over and whatever. But if you're always keeping that path of know, like, and trust, you're going to have a lot of great relationships, a lot of great business, a lot of energy to go out and grind it out every day. And she's 68. A lot of people, especially men, give her shit because she's so tough, but she kicks ass. And my comment always to people before, I always say, look, we're friends, so be careful what you say. I'm like, oh, she's just so tough. I'm like, yeah, would you say that if she was a man? Because because she beat you. So anyway, Darla Longo, CBRE, and again, I say it all the time. Chris Smith's on this call. She's probably tired of me saying that same thing, but I always tell people you got to have a know and like and trust team around you all the time.
Thank you. And I think that was kind of a common theme through all of your responses is have good people. And I'm fairly new to my role, but I've been at JLL for 5 years. And when anyone ever asks me how it's going, I always say it's hard, and I can't imagine how much harder it would be if I didn't have the support of everyone that I work with, which is incredible. All right, Molly, I promise I'm going to give you the reins momentarily, but I wanted to put you on the spot for a second. So for everyone on the call who does not know Molly, Molly is a tenant rep broker here in our Raleigh JLL office. And when I asked her to moderate this, she said yes immediately, which I was very excited about because I think she has a lot of great advice to share. But specifically, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about maternity leave because we had several questions about that. And knowing that you just came back from your second maternity leave late last year, I was wondering if you could just dive into that a little bit, talk a little bit about any advice you have for preparing for maternity leave, and then also advice for coming back from maternity leave and balancing work and family.
Definitely. And thanks, everyone. Excited to be here today. I can't tell you that I have all the answers on the maternity leave topic, but I can share that I've done it twice. And the first time I did it really poorly in preparing, and the second time I did it much better. So you get some lessons learned from me. The first time I went into it pretty blind, felt unprepared, had a baby arrive 7 weeks early, and went to the hospital one day and didn't come back. And so, being prepared early and having conversations and making sure you have a plan is critical, number one. The good news is that JLL now has spent a lot of time and resources on trying to support female brokers to make maternity leave a positive experience. And so in October of last year, they rolled out a new maternity leave policy for brokers. And there is now a maternity mentor program that you can take advantage of. So the first time I went out, I didn't know any women who had taken maternity leave. And so I didn't know where to start asking questions. But now there's a whole resource today where you can reach out and talk to people that have had these experiences, and they can say, okay, here's what you need to be thinking about. Here's when you need to tell your partners. Here's how you can get prepared. So I think the resources are there, and it can be challenging, but there's support, and so that's key. As far as work-life balance goes, I think that's a journey we all have, regardless of your family. It's particularly challenging when you have a dual working household, and I know men and women both experience this. So I have two bits of advice. One is have a strong support network, especially as a working mom. Find good childcare. You've got to have it. And as unpredictable as our business is, children are just as unpredictable. So have backup plans and people that can help you in a pinch. It's a village. It takes a village every day. And then the other thing, and this is the hardest thing that I'm working on now, is kind of setting boundaries around yourself and your work so that you can really be present when you're at home with your family. But the main thing is it's a journey. It's not going to be perfect. You've got to give yourself some grace, which is easier said than done. But find other women in the company, other brokers that can be your sounding board. I found that probably later in my career than I wish I had. And you guys now have the opportunity of 90 women on this call that can support you and each other. And other women in the business that want to reach out, Jody, myself, and men in the business that have had female partners go out that want to support you. So take advantage of those opportunities and talk to people and let them help you navigate it. Happy to answer any questions. If people have specific questions on maternity leave, just reach out to me separately, and then we can make sure you get connected to the right people.
Thank you, Molly. I have the advantage of getting to work with you on an almost daily basis, and I always appreciate how real you are about the struggles of work-life balance before and after having kids. So I'm really glad you were able to join us, and I will let you take it from here.
Awesome. Well, when Casey asked me to participate, obviously it was an absolute yes, and I was excited to learn about this group of 90 women. And, when I started, I didn't know a lot of other women that were brokers, and surely Jody's experience was very similar, and probably Jody's someone that's been a mentor and a support network to me. And so, you guys have this great opportunity to connect with each other, which is incredible. So I encourage you all to take advantage of it. And I'm sure you'll find moments of growth out of it. So to kick things off with our panelists, I want to talk about learning and overcoming setbacks or challenges in the business. And in our business, every day is a new day. It's a mindset game, and it can be a roller coaster. And when I started in the business, I often heard from other people that you experience the highest highs and the lowest lows in the shortest period of time in this business. And that is absolutely true. So to weather the volatility, we've all had to learn how to kind of put on our optimism hat daily. So my first question for the group is, tell us about a specific deal, project, or relationship that you've invested a lot of time in, and then either the client hired someone else or the deal went from a 10-year deal to 0 or died. How did you digest it, get over it, and learn from it? Essentially, how have you learned to weather the ups and downs in the business? And let's start with Evan. You're in my top left-hand corner. Let's start with you on that question.
Cool. Yeah, I like that question. I mean, I think in this business, you got to be able to weather the highs and lows, and you got to have a strong backbone. I like this sort of intro to it, Molly, so I'll kind of go backwards. I'll do my learning sort of experience second, but I love that sort of have to wear the optimism hat statement, because I think that's a lot of times what our clients are buying. I mean, depending on what line of business you're in, but the optimism hat is huge. I think being a constant, problem solver, not kind of BSing and not giving a false sense of optimism, but a true sense and a belief in what the solution is, and being optimistic for a reason. And when you're selling something you really believe in, and hopefully that you are optimistic about it, I think it's real, and then it is not only believable, but it's contagious. So that as the intro to this question. As it relates to just a learning experience, I'll give you one. When I started my business here at JLL, we had no listings. I'm on the agency side, and the guy who I started it with, we were 31 at the time. I'll never forget our first enormous trophy pitch was a building called 1101 New York, owned by these guys called Property Group Partners. The guy who we built a relationship with, this is 2 weeks before the pitch got in a really bad car accident. And so his folks that were above him were essentially the people we were going to be pitching to. We had no clue. Super trophy building. Probably didn't have any business being there, but they liked our energy and our ideas. We wound up having an unbelievable pitch. We should have won. They went with a guy who was senior to us, that had been around in the business a long time. And they basically told us we're not giving the keys to the castle to these two 32-year-old kids. that was a loss that stung because we knew we had the right strategy. The good news is it led to pretty quickly thereafter, at the time, the largest listing and one of the best trophy listings in the city that we then won. It was a multiple month process, but I think really the learning experience for me there was it created a ton of fire in our belly. And I think losing is one of the best ways to learn. So I look at losing and getting critical feedback as one of the best ways to evolve and get better in our business. So I would encourage you guys to accept, embrace failure, but making sure you're learning from those failures. To close the story on that story and learning experience for me, that's exact same owner property group partners about 3 years ago hired us on one of the largest listings in DC, a listing called Capitol Crossing for 1 million square feet. So it all came full circle. I guess we weren't ready for it at 32, but maybe at 35 we were. So there you have it, Molly.
I love it. I love the concept of losing is learning, and I think that's an opportunity or something that we've all had to embrace in this business for sure. Jody, how about you?
I'm going to add a lot to what Evan just said. I mean, we've pitched business and lost like the first go round, and it's a little disheartening because you put so much into it. But if you use it as an opportunity to further develop the relationship, there's a good chance you're getting the next deal, and there's a really good chance you're getting the third deal. And, we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but kind of what I specialize is just give me a chance on one deal. And I've never not been able to grow it to more than that. A little bit different on agency because you're picking up buildings, but don't be afraid to ask, why didn't we get this? What can we do better? What else can I help you with when you're planning? Like I had an owner out here that was tied into a developer as their leasing agent for years. And for years, we helped them with their market information because the developer was like, yeah, we don't have to do any of this. We don't care. And their contract was horrible and they couldn't get out of it. So we did it for years to help them out. Nice person. We developed a great relationship. When she went to sell the project and I said, hey, we have capital markets here now and we can handle it. The pitch was a formality. So sometimes it takes a long time to develop relationships, but business comes out of it. You've got to look at the long-term play.
That's awesome, Jody. And, I think people really pay attention to how you lose. And if you handle it gracefully, she's absolutely right. I've seen time and time again with people on our team where they've been able to create opportunities out of something that they lost. So that's a good point. Louis, what about you?
I want to, like Jody said, I'm the eternal optimist and I'm just happy all the time. And so the funny thing is people think, oh, you must not lose. And I'm like, I lose all the time. You just don't know it. I don't let it get to me. I decided a long time ago, I work for people. I like that. I like the service industry. I don't have an ego. I have an ego about not having an ego. So I'll grind. I'll do whatever you want. And by doing that, and my line all the time in a lot of my emails is, I'll do anything you need anytime. Just ask pro bono. And I love pro bono because it kind of, it's a legal word, but people are like, they know that pro bono means free. And they know it means there's not a charge. And sometimes you worry that if you say you'll do anything for them anytime, they think that there's going to be an ask. But I just am I always call it the greatest loser. Like if I don't win, I'm like, I understand, by the way, CBRE is great. If you couldn't hire me because I'm your brother-in-law and there's a conflict, I would tell you, hire them. I have sometimes said to them, but mostly before they've given us the news that we didn't win, if you can't hire me, who they would hire, because I like to make sure that they do hire the best. I don't want them to hire, the schlag and then have to say later, well, I should have told you that was a bad mistake. So, but I really think it comes back to just, this is a numbers game, as Jody and Evan have said. I mean, it's years, it's 20 calls, you get one call back, 5 pitches, you get one deal. If you're getting bummed out about that, then again, that's this business, right? And everybody should look at you and you should have a smile and you should be happy because this business is exciting. It does have those high highs and those low lows, and that's what we love about it.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it goes back to kind of full circle. If you're doing this with people that you know, trust, and like Lewis talked about, then writing out those highs and lows makes it a lot more tolerable. And you can high five each other and you can commiserate, but you give yourself the time and then you move on and you focus on the next opportunity. So that topic parlays really nicely into the next question. And that is, how do you take ownership of your mistakes and learn from them? If you're not taking risks, then you're not making mistakes and you aren't growing. And as a female, I can say this, generally as women, we like to be perfect and we want to solve for everything immediately, which can be challenging in this business because it's not prescriptive and there's not a roadmap for success. So I want to start with Jody on this one, and then I'm going to circle back with Evan and Lewis as well. But Jody, can you talk about a mistake or a bad decision that you've made, or a failure with the client, project, and partner where the stakes were high? And some of you may have already touched on this in the last question. But how did you navigate gracefully and take ownership of that mistake and learn from it?
Quite frankly, I'm in the middle of one right now. I've disappointed a client on something that we missed, and I own up to it immediately. This was my miss. This was, a mistake, and we're going to figure it out together how to get through it. I found that saying to a client and taking ownership typically gets them to say, well, it wasn't all you and it's partly on us. And, the more you're willing to take on the accountability and responsibility, one, the more honest you're being. And two, even if it isn't 100% you, the willing not to throw somebody else on the bus and not to put under the bus and not to point fingers is critical, because you will typically find your clients actually talking you out of taking complete ownership. I don't know if it's going to happen in this case, but I just think honest in saying we failed or we didn't deliver this or we have to fix this, and not trying to skirt around it and not trying to point a finger at somebody else. I think that that's critical.
That's great, Jody. Thanks for sharing. Lewis, you're up
Yeah,
next.
I think Jody's got it. I mean, mistakes every year, lots of mistakes. I mean, I think the comment's perfect. If you're not making mistakes, you're not working hard. And we work for people. And if you disappoint a person, you got to own it right away. And again, I'm throwing myself under the bus all the time. And I just admit to it and say, we have a plan. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And please give us the chance to fix this, so that they recognize that you want to correct it. And again, we've corrected problems where it's cost us money. We've discounted fees based on taking care of mistakes in TI plans or in PDS or something, anything. And so if you own it, I think 9 times out of 10, they are going to accept that you're trying to fix it and move forward. And I think that's the key. I remember some bad quote, like bad news is delivered fast and cold. And the longer it drags out, the more apt you are to get screwed over. It's going to wreck your brand equity. So just the minute you find out, don't be sorting around. How do I present this? Just, it is what it is.
Awesome. So I'm hearing own up to it fast and be upfront about it. Evan, do you have a particular story or experience you can share, or any kind of commentary around addressing mistakes quickly and owning up to them and resolving them with your clients?
I could do a bunch. I think Jody and Lewis nailed it, though. I really think that the whole owning up and being accountable is just the key. And I guess my challenge to the group, I said it a little bit before, but to me, the biggest sort of failure is not having an idea and not trying and not speaking, right? And not at least trying. And I think people really respect it. And I think as a junior, I hate that word, but as a junior broker, I think people are so fearful of a mistake or saying something that people will think is wrong, as opposed to trying it. It's the only way you're going to learn. It's the only way you're going to get better. So my challenge to you guys is don't be afraid of failing. And get out there and take a chance.
Love it. Love it. All good thoughts. So speaking of navigating situations gracefully, we had a few questions submitted on splits. And honestly, there could be a whole session on this topic alone. And it's a really hard topic to address because it can vary based on market or your business line or your team structure. But everyone knows in our business, we don't traditionally negotiate pricing with our clients, but rather we're negotiating internally with our partners, which is unique. and it's not black and white, and most people don't enjoy it, and a lot of times it's uncomfortable. And the reality is that until you control your own business, you are going to be at the mercy of others around you as to kind of what your splits are. And it can be easy early in your career to kind of focus on the short-term dollars and not take a long-term approach. And someone gave me a great piece of advice early on, and they said that 5 years will go by faster than you think, but to focus on where you want to be and not so much where you are today. So Lewis, I'll start with you this time. And my question for the panelists is, what are your thoughts or responses to a junior broker who is overly focused on what their splits are on a project or disappointed about their share?
Yeah, I think your advice was the best. Is where this is a marathon. This is a long-term game, and when I started, I was told you should pay me to let you run for me and work for me, because I'm giving you an education, and then you're going to go off and make millions of dollars. And if you've got the game that you say you do, then you shouldn't even worry about the splits. And again, I say that, but remember the comment we talked about at the beginning of being with people that you know, like, and trust, right? You're going to meet, and I've been here at JLL 10 years now. And again, I'm not going to name names, but there's people at JLL that I've had experiences with that I will now not go and work with them if I don't have to, just because. And it's not, JLL is fabulous. We're better than most, but people are people, and some personalities don't mix, and some, relationships, sometimes it doesn't work out. And some people are looking out for themselves more than others. This is a sale, it's a commission-based business. So you got to look at it eyes wide open. But I would say the two keys would be focus on your business. How does this build your business, your brand, your stature? Is it a big deal? I mean, if you could work on a huge deal with Toyota and get 5% and be in that room when it's happened, it sounds like one of the shows we've heard. But I think that's the key. Are you going to argue about that piece? I think you need to be careful with that, because again, you should be quick to get out of that. And just, if it's a negotiation like that in a deal, just figure out how to get out of it, and then just don't work with that person again if you think it's so bad. Because if it isn't bad, what's going to happen is that person's going to remember this discussion about 1%, 2%, 5%, and it's not worth it. You've now got a brand equity that is kind of tainted with focused on money. And again, the big money comes in the big deals when you've driven that business with a team, not, negotiating at the back end when it's done for 5 or 10 points. And I'm really bad with negotiation, by the way. I hate talking about money. So.
All good thoughts. Jody, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I agree with a lot of what Lewis said. I think particularly, and it does depend a little bit if you're kind of on your own working with whomever, wherever, or on a team. I'm going to focus a little bit more on you're on your own and figuring it out. I think the first time you're working with someone, it's almost a gimme. It's whatever they're gonna give you or share with you is pretty much a yes, because you're getting an education. The key is, if you've really added value, you're then in the driver's seat. If you've really helped on a deal, whether it's the next client, the next deal for that client, or the next client that senior broker has, and they come to you, you're in a little bit more of a position where you've proven yourself. Your first deal with a team or a person, you've got to prove that you're more than just a junior that they're putting on it, that you want to learn. I'll say this, I don't know of anybody in this business that doesn't like to talk about themselves. So if somebody brings you in to work on something and says, hey, I want you to call on these and set up a survey and everything else, find the time to sit with the person. Find the time in their schedule to get them to talk. Because at the end of the day, they're going to think so much of you, and that you shared so much, and typically they've shared more. So get them talking, not just about the deal, how they do things and so forth. You want to become a trusted partner, and you don't do that on your first deal with someone. It takes a while, and you've got to prove that you're doing more than whatever they tell you to do. And don't focus on the splits.
Yeah. The themes I'm hearing are invest in your partnerships, right? And invest in the deals so that you're basically getting an education. Evan, any other additional thoughts on this topic as people think about how to take the long-term view in this business?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll emphasize 2 points. I'll make a third. The first is one, just don't get taken advantage of. So know what your value is. I'll come back to that in a second. The second point is just, it's really simple. Like, I think that this group is mostly like within the first couple 5-ish years of your career. The only thing that's important, splits are last. Money made last. I know that's hard to hear. Learning everything. Period. End of story. Learn as much as you can. If you can learn and be on 5,000 deals, and there's another, woman or guy that's on one deal and made 5 times as much as you're one. Period. End of story. So I think that's it. Build those reputations. The last thing is, I think in this business, you get what you deserve. Like, really, like, period. End of story. And so don't feel that you can't speak up if you are, you should be learning more than what someone is proposing, right? And I think that's where you do have to have really good mentors and leaders. The last thing I would leave you with, and it relates to you get what you deserve, be careful too. Be smart about what it is that you deserve. Be careful, be smart about what the value is that you bring. Understand what the marketplace says. I think oftentimes you hear about like the cocktail party comp, right? Which is like the tenant rep taking like the best part of every deal and like that's now the market. Well, that's the same thing I think what happens in comp and salary and what people make. And I think people talk a lot, and I think it's not always exactly the truth. So just be careful, understand what the marketplace is and what the marketplace bears for the value that you are bringing.
Awesome thoughts. I hope everyone was taking notes during this commentary. I think this is a great segue into the next topic, which is about partnership, and particularly how junior brokers can add value. And we know that our business is an apprenticeship business, and you learn and you grow and you succeed by others teaching and investing in you. And 7 years into the business, I'm still learning and growing and evolving my business daily. And I credit most of my success to date as having an opportunity to learn from other senior partners. So the bulk of the questions that we received from you all today were around how to successfully partner with senior team members and add value. So Evan, I'm going to start with you this time, but if you can think about a junior broker on your team, maybe someone in your office that is your go-to, really shining, adding a ton of value to senior brokers or clients, what are they doing? What are the little things? What makes them stand out to add value to your business, even early on before they don't have the deal experience or the knowledge base?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, I don't like the word junior broker, and I encourage this group to you keep hearing me say that, but like we're really like flat on our team, and I love like everyone on our team that's a broker's a partner, pretty much from day one at some split level. And so, obviously try to find a good partnership that you like and that you trust. I think what I always say is, and I think Lewis and Jody said versions of this already, but I'm going to invest as much in educating you as you are, as I will expect you to invest in me and our clients. And so I think you get what you put into it. And so what I would say is just to be super proactive, make life easier on the people, not just seniors around you. Really always try to move the ball forward, be proactive. I say this in interviews with people, like it's incumbent upon the junior, there I just did it, the junior person, the newer person.
We gotta come up with a new word for that on this.
Yeah,
emerging broker.
Emerging
broker.
Got it.
It is, I hate junior broker, emerging broker, I just call them partners, whatever. But I think it really is incumbent upon you all to manage up, and in order to manage up, you need to understand what I started with, the investment that a partner that has been tenured longer is so much, and you is so much more valuable than any dollars you're going to make. So make that relationship as reciprocal as you can. The more you are contributing to your partners on your team, the more they're going to want to give back to you. I really believe that.
Awesome. Lewis, would love to hear your thoughts on where you are seeing junior brokers adding value, and kind of to further that too, when you see people having success on the business development front early on, what are they doing right?
Yeah, I'll give you two names of associates as Evelyn said, that are, I think, doing it right. But I wanted to just go back to what Jody said, because I think that's a good start, is what's the most important thing to one of your partners that you want to work for? I mean, if I'm working for a client and I want that client to be happy and everything that I do is about making them happy and delivering what they want, then the associate that's going to work with me is going to make me look better. It's my brand with their brand added is making the client look phenomenal. So whether it's, again, getting to know them, but I mean, knowing how they work and what they want and what they see as a value to give to the client is the important parts. And that's what then builds up that relationship where I'm happy to give whatever percent because I see that value and I want you with me on the next deal, right? Versus worrying about 5 or 10%. And now I'm like, geez, I don't, maybe you weren't as important as you think you were, or again, you don't want to put that in my mind. And so I'll give you 2 examples. Chris Smith, who's on this call, has been here for 5 years. She came from the retail side, decided she wanted to be in the real estate business, the industrial e-commerce business. And the point I would leave with her is she is just willing to do anything and everything to be in a deal, to be in front of the deal, to be on the calls and in the mix. Like, don't bring a deal and then you run it for me. I understand I don't have it, but I need you to show me so that I can learn how to do it myself with you and then eventually without. And so to have a partner that gets that and will lead and, hand off is super important. And she's killing it now. It's taken her 3 years of, like no money, but now she's got a bunch of big stuff working, and it's about just grind, call, email. I call it stalking, just on the edge of stalking. And all the things that she delivers to the table that are what I know I need and we need to win. The second one would be Scott Wetzel. He's been here for 10 years. He's on the office tenant rep side. I am working on 3 large office tenant rep transactions with him now that are all industrial clients looking for corporate office changes. I wouldn't bring anybody in but him, because he's like me, just better looking and 32. And it's not he or she, he's the crazy Energizer bunny here that I know does everything the way I like it, he's just built like me. And so he's built up his brand equity. I brought him into this last deal. He's like, why do you need me? It could be a renewal in this 80,000 square foot building, but they want to go out and look. I go, because I know that you know this market better than anybody, and I want you to lead and show this client everything. And so he's established so much value with me, as Chris has established so much value with me, that I couldn't think of a deal happening that I wouldn't go to them. So again, it comes back to what Jody said is, hey, you need to be super valuable. And then your biggest worry is going to be how busy you are, not the fees, right? And if it did go the wrong way, just to be, think about that. Well, then you're going to decide that maybe you don't want to work with that person. If they've taken advantage of you at that point and don't see the value, you're going to figure it out. And if they do, they're going to continue to come to you and want to give you more, so you don't go to anybody else.
I love it. I'm hearing make yourself invaluable and invest in your partnerships. But Jody, do you have anything else to add on this topic?
Yeah, I'm going to start with someone on our team that is not on the call today because she had a baby on Saturday. But Colleen McGuire came in here and kind of set it on fire. We were looking for someone to lead our technology. We had a couple people that were interested. She came to me and said, I really want this. Will you let me run through with you? And we did a run through 3 times, and she presented to our leads in every service line. And they literally said there was no competition because she did the homework and she went in. And that is setting her apart to the point that, quite frankly, I don't know how to use all of our new technology, but I also don't need to, well, until she gets back from maternity leave, because I could just pull her in and she's the expert, and it's worth every dime of whatever we're going to share because of that. My other suggestion is, listen, starting out, it can be kind of soul crushing and it can be hard. find a charity that you're interested in and get involved. One, if the worst that's going to happen is you're going to feel good about giving back. What will most likely happen and will take time is you will develop relationships and business out of it. I think it's kind of the key to give your life some balance, make you feel good about some things when you're slamming your head against the wall, especially starting out. And then I'm going to give you my shortcut to JLL, which is if you want to get noticed at JLL, you've got to do more than your job. You've got to volunteer for things. That's how you get ahead here. And no one tells you that. And quite frankly, it took me 10 years to figure it out. There's a committee for something. If there's a committee for something, or, whether it's the Women's Business Network or another ERG or a project in your office, go to somebody and say, hey, listen, I want to learn. I want to hear about this. I'm not looking to make anything on it. Start that way. The more you expose yourself and the more you volunteer that isn't your day-to-day job, the quicker you're going to be acknowledged and the turn will come. It just takes time. Evan,
I love it.
Can I?
Yeah, jump back in if you've got something.
Yeah, as we were talking, I just thought of a good example. Like when I hear the word business development, I think especially in a sales organization like ours, it means get new business. And I thought of a good example. So I think sometimes the best way to get new business is to outperform and to service existing business, right? And so we just had one where I was high-fiving her yesterday, but Kristen Mathis, I don't know if you guys know her, but she's on our team. She's risen up the ranks. She's awesome. For any of you out there that are looking for a mentor, call her. She's awesome. But we leased up these 2 buildings for this local REIT called Washington REIT, and did all the big leasing, and we had small suites left, and we had an asset manager switch, and this guy was so hard, so painful. I mean, he just crushed us. And candidly, we probably should have said, we're not going to do this. It wasn't a good use of anybody's time, but both of us made the determination that we weren't going to quit. And so she did all of the work and absolutely crushed it, leased up all these really difficult spaces. And so obviously that was a success in and of itself. And the client then was a huge fan of ours. Lo and behold, another one of our huge clients, Brookfield, just buys their entire office portfolio. And so what her ability to succeed and keep those listings allows us to obviously now perform for one of our bigger clients and show them our worth on kind of the everyday grind stuff, which I thought was just a cool example. And don't always think about business development as going out there and having to, land some big listing. Perform for your existing clients, whether you're on the tenant rep leading to references or whether you're on agency to repeat performance with your clients buying other buildings.
That's awesome. And I love both of those examples because what I hear from that is identify the gaps amongst your team or the pain points and jump in and be the solution for them, right? And that's how you're going to get people to invest back in you, and from there you'll grow. So let's shift back a little bit. We talked a lot about people making mistakes, and we all learn by doing. And so it's inevitable that we all make mistakes from time to time. But, as you watch emerging brokers growing in their career, what are the common kind of pitfalls or mistakes that you see them make that hold them back from growth? And Jody, I'll start with you on this one.
Okay. I think a part of it is too focused on the money and not focused enough on the education and the networking. And I also, I think probably Ashley and Molly are going to know that I've said this to them on several occasions. If business development is a big priority for you, block your time. And if you have to move it, move the block. Don't just forget it. It is probably, for a lot of people, their number one priority. So make it that. It is very easy to get bogged down with running deals for other people or working on other things. But don't forget, your number one priority is yourself, and that's developing your own business. So make sure you reserve the time on your schedule. And if it means, it's going to be 4 to 6 o'clock on a Thursday, don't let somebody come in and block that and move that time for you. Or, like I said, move the block, figure out how much time a week you're going to spend on it and commit to it. Because it's just very easy to get pulled in directions. And for a lot of us, I'll speak for myself in particular, business development is not my forte. I'm much better, give me one deal, I'm going to convert it into a client, and I don't care if I have an MSA or preferred provider, but we'll figure it out. But you've got to get there, and the way to get there is controlling your own business.
All good thoughts. Evan, what about you? What are the pitfalls that you're seeing from emerging brokers on your team that the folks on this call should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, you've heard me talk about mistakes, so make them, and so I always say to people, make a mistake, I'm going to high five you the first time. Make a mistake the second time, I'm going, okay. Make a mistake the third time, shame on you, you're being lazy. Learn from the mistakes. So learn from the mistakes. What are some of the mistakes? I think, look, our business is an apprenticeship, right? And that's kind of like a good and a bad. The hard part for you guys is if you make a mistake, I always say this, like, I can't go tell, Lauren to go read chapter 3 tonight on, and you'll know it tomorrow. So I think being a student of the game is really important. I think oftentimes people think because it's an apprenticeship, you have to show me 5 times. Well, there's a lot of ways to get better and to hone your skill. In our business, a lot of our skills are soft set skills, but you can improve your hard set skills, whether that be, learning how to financial model or learning, or studying or research and coming up with a new idea and a new concept. So I would really encourage you to sort of not just wait for it to come to you, but go out and get it, create a storyline, be inquisitive and be curious. That's I think the mistake that most people make is like waiting, not just going out and grabbing it and pushing themselves to learn.
I love it. Lewis, what about you?
I think it comes back to what we were talking about previously, is just best team for the field, knowing who to bring in and bringing the right person in. If you find an opportunity and you're focused on you're already doing the fee, it's 20,000 square feet times 6%, and I'm going to get 50. Well, if I'm going to work really hard, I need to get 50. So and you should bring as many people in as you need, even if it's handing off to somebody that you will then track with, even as difficult as that might feel, but you need to win. And I see that a lot with associates where they're focused on, this is my first deal, or is this a good deal, or whatever. And then, they don't put the right team in front, and it's just really sad. And we see it all the time. And, we even lose sometimes when we haven't sorted it out. And that's even feels bad because we think we know the right team for the field. But imagine if I see an associate go pitch a piece of business and they lose, and I find out who they pitched against, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like I would have won that, or I know who could have, or it's just sad. It's like a roll up. It's like a given that just is lost forever. And, I look at opportunities like that, like it's so disappointing because that's, one relationship begets so many others. So if you miss one that you had in your grasp, it's really bad.
If I can add to that a little bit, I've always been a fan of, I'd rather have 10% of 10 deals than 100% of one, because if that one deal dies, you're done. If you're getting 10% of 10 different deals and one dies, you're still going to be okay. So, you want to work with as many people as you can and learn from them, but also learn who you want to continue to work with.
Yep, good point. And I always think about our business. It's like you always hear on Shark Tank, 100% of nothing is nothing. You want to win the business, bring in the right people, and you'll continue to win from there. So one mistake I've seen junior brokers make is that you feel like you have to be a master at everything. And our business is really changing and evolving. And the days of being a generalist, a jack of all trades and a master at none is really no longer relevant. Today, we are required by our client to know the business of our client's business and take a much more consultative role. So as I look at the three of you, you all have a specialty area and have experienced a ton of success. And so I'm going to put you on the spot and maybe make you a little uncomfortable and ask you to brag about yourself for a moment. But if you can answer the question, why you, what makes you successful, what are you doing right, how have you created a niche or a specialty area for yourself to differentiate yourself from your competitors and add value to your clients? Lewis, let's start with you on this one.
Great. And by the way, I was trying to figure out how we're talking about Jody's technology thing, how to send a chat message to everybody. But I'm available anytime after, but I have a 11:30 here, so it just when do you think I drop off? And it was like something you said. I would say I hate the term elevator pitch, but you have to know what it is you do, and you have to be specific. There's all the words. You're a master of a certain sector, a business line, technology, or so. What I usually tell people now, I've made it really simple, is I'm in the industrial logistics business. And all those little boxes that you order to your doorstep, I am the one who leases the big industrial warehouse boxes so that those companies can deliver those to your door. Really easy to understand. All the other pieces around that don't really matter. It kind of comes into something that's really understandable, especially in a conversation, a cocktail party or something. What do you do? Industrial real estate. What does that mean? Or commercial real estate. Commercial, I usually, people think that's retail or whatever. So, and I think then for client facing too, like I said with Scott Wetzel, if you're down a path, and I'm focused on industrial logistics, retail e-commerce, this warehouse path, they're still going to ask you if they have a corporate requirement for office. Then you just bring, like we said, the right team because they trust you already. But if your card says all these things or says nothing, I think it's really hard. They're going to be like, well, what do you do? Right? What is it that you specialize in? So I just think you're not minimizing your opportunities if you're doing the right things, but you need to make sure that you're making calls to a sector that is where you're going to succeed and that you're a specialist in.
Yeah, have some focus. Great thoughts. Jody, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's interesting because I've kind of realized I'm product type agnostic. I'm client focused. So I understand my clients, what their needs are, what their drivers are, and so forth. And then I partner up, even in my own market, with the right people to deliver and making sure that I'm the single point of contact. And more importantly, and I think the key to it is responsiveness. If someone asks you to do something, don't just let them assume you're doing it. Get back to them and say, I'm working on it. I'll have it for you by Friday. Or, be super responsive so that someone doesn't have to come to you with a question of when am I going to have this? And I think that's the key, is making your client's life and their job easier. And that's my job. And I don't make it anything more fancy than that. My job is to make their jobs easier.
Yep. And Jody simplified it a bit, but I'm going to brag on her for a second because I know how good she is. And she's really built herself as a specialized IPS and account-based broker. And so she has a lot of knowledge in how to support those types of clients. So she keeps it simple on the mindset, but she is focused and specialized in the type of work and value that she's adding to her clients.
Thanks, Molly.
Evan, what
Send
about
the
you?
check.
Evan, what about you from the agency side? Yeah, that'd be great.
It's fresh in my head because my partner, Doug, and I we were talking about this the other day. So for me, it's the 2 Ps, passion and preparation. So obviously on the passion thing, like you kind of can't teach it. You got to be you, right? For me, and this always has to be you. For me, that it tends to get manifested in a lot of energy, right? Hopefully you're picking up on some of that today, and a lot of conviction in the way that we speak and deliver messages. And that doesn't have to be, passion doesn't have to only be high energy. It can mean, when you're passionate, I think that really comes across. For me, I'm also a real, you've heard me say this, a student of the game. And I do really have a passion for my craft, but in order for that passion to really be valuable to your client, the starting point for that, the underlying kind of thing is an ability to be credible with that passion. And so that leads to number 2, which is preparation. And I actually call it over preparation, right? Because I think about when we're hitting, we spent so much time researching, thinking, like literally role playing the back and forth, the point, the counterpoint, and a huge one for us is like thinking about what the objections are. Big theme of ours is like overcoming objections, right? And so if you're spending all that time, by the time we're at the point of making a sale, which to be honest with you, I think a sale is anytime you have an opportunity to open your mouth. You guys hear that a lot. every time you speak is an opportunity to make an impression upon somebody. So every time you speak, every time you're making a sale, you better be beyond ready. And if you are, then what we have found is we're 2 to 3 steps ahead of our client, and so, or the prospect, or the tenant rep or the tenant. And so if I'm ahead of them, they're following me, and they're literally, whether it's my client, they're on board with my strategy. Whether it's the tenant rep, I'm ahead of them in my negotiation tactic, and whether it's a tenant on a tour, they're literally they're lockstep with me, and they're feeling it. So it's all about preparation. And you can't really at a younger age or new sort of position in the company, there's nothing more you can be doing than constantly preparing. So those are the 2 ones for me.
I love it. And, I think that's relevant to everyone on this call. So I know we're coming up on the half hour, and I think, we all want to be resources to you all and want to share. And so if you have specific questions, please shoot us an email, and we're happy to answer them. But we want to make sure you walk away today with some actionable advice and some things that you can take back to your office. So starting with you, Jody, what is the one thing you would recommend that everyone on this call start doing when they go back to their office tomorrow?
Tonight, take a hard look at yourself, figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then go to your office and meet with people. You want to meet with people where your strength is their weakness, and you want to meet with people whose strength is your weakness and how you can learn from them. But I think Evan summed it up really well. This is an apprenticeship. Take advantage of it.
I love it. Evan, I've probably caught you taking a sip of your drink, but what's your lasting thought for everyone on this call?
Get after it, work hard. I think it's a lost art. I think people feel too entitled, and I don't mean in our business, I think everywhere. There's nothing that will replace hard work. I had an uncle who was in the business at one point that told me first one in, last one out. I'm 41 years old. We have the largest, 40 years old. I don't even know how old I am. Bad preparation right there. But there's not a day where I'm not the first one in and last one out. And that's even some of my junior folks. So working hard, be curious. You heard me say get passionate, and then learn every day. So yeah, that's my take. Go get them.
I love it. Well, thanks everyone. This was awesome. Appreciate Evan, Jody, and obviously Lewis, who had to hop off. But Casey, I'll turn it over to you for some closing words.
Yeah, thank you all so much for this. This was a really impactful and wonderful way to spend an hour. And I'll just say, one thing I've always appreciated about in my time here at JLL is that senior or more experienced brokers are always willing to lend their time and advice to some emerging brokers. And it helps us kind of drive our careers, but also builds the culture that we have here. And so I just thank you again for all the preparation and work you put into this and spending time with us today. For the Empowerment Group, just a reminder, we are going to meet again in September with Joe Judge and Anna Ho to talk business plans, the importance and how to make them really impactful. Want to be mindful of everyone's time. So with that, I'll just say we'll see you in September and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.